Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Friday. And if you can see on your screen there, it is episode number 50. Oh my goodness, how time flies. So yes, another week, and we're coming to you in National Volunteer Week as well. But before we kick off, please may I pay my respects to all our Aboriginal peoples, of which we work with every day, both past, present and emerging leaders, in how we communicate the land and the 60,000 years of history that existed way before us. So let's kick off and thank our volunteers as well. National Volunteer Week, and I made a special tribute to them. We did on social media, and we also sent all our volunteers a beautiful certificate of thanks, because we have quite a few volunteers in our sector, but also within Outdoors New South Wales and ACT as well. We have subcommittees and we have boards. So our board of directors, first and foremost, none of them are paid, and they give their time and their skill and their knowledge and expertise to improving this organisation. So thank you to each one of those, as well as all our subcommittee members. We have the Trail Bike Committee, we have the Risk Management Incident Response Committee, we have the Mountain Bike Committee. Very soon we're going to have the Climate Change Committee, and we have the National Outdoor Education Conference Committee. So all of you commit time and energy to improve the industry, to improve what we have as our daily lives, our daily work, and for that we thank you. So please, if you know any other volunteers, reach out. And even though we shouldn't be thanking them just because it's National Volunteer Week, it certainly does remind us of what they contribute. So make a special effort to reach out to them this week. Thought for the week, I attended a workshop with McCrindle this week. It was on Education Forum. A bit more I'll talk to in a couple of slides, but what the thought for the week here was, much of what we had pre-COVID we will never see again. We're not moving to the next, but the new. It is not a continuation of how things were, but the start of a whole new reality. And this for me resonated with so many conversations I've had with each one of you and also stakeholders about what is the future now. And it's not going back to the past. I hear again and again, we've got to go business as usual, back to business as usual. How do we get back to what we had? And I think the more that we understand that that is not a consideration in today's world, that we need to start working towards the new, I think it's going to be an easier process for a lot of us. So I just wanted to share that with you because I thought it was quite pertinent with many of the conversations that I've had. So observations from the week. I was lucky enough to go to the Business Australia event with Josh Frydenberg this week, and he obviously spoke about the budget and what was in the budget, which we all covered off last week in our Connect and Share. But one quote which I really took note of when he said it was, the speed and take up of technology is increasing and the economy will change. Going with that quote we just mentioned, but the regions will also be stronger. So that's a note for all of us to consider that in what we're doing as a business and progressing in development needs and our customers' needs, that technology will continue to increase. So how do we use that? How do we actually leverage that? But also, how do we message within that as well? Because as we all know, some of our challenges are getting away from technology a lot of the time. So yeah, really important to consider that quote from Josh Frydenberg. And yeah, think about how we can leverage that for our own use. The other interesting fact he talked about was the supply chain work that the government's doing, and certainly in trying to make Australia more capable in having its own supply chain mechanisms, learnings obviously from COVID. And they talked about the borders, which obviously was some of our questioning that we put to the Treasurer. And when we expect borders to open, but it was very obvious that students will be first that come into the country. So if we are looking at our visa holders returning, our skilled workers returning to the outdoor, how do we look at those students? And is there an opportunity to connect with some of the universities in providing that work, aside of the university and obviously regional ability to tap into online learning within Australia. So again, some thoughts and considerations for the businesses in the industry. But yeah, it was a good event, and we've got to keep in there with these messages around visas, around borders, and around the needs of the industry. But the capacity issues are very prevalent indeed. I keep hearing from you how struggling in outdoor leaders are being exhausted, can't get the right staff. We know all this, but what a conversation with ACA this week really highlighted how bad it is right across the sector. And a survey that the Australian Camps Association did recognised that 76% of all of their members could not accommodate the demand that they were receiving. And that was due to capacity and shortfall of staff. An average of 17% shortfall in staff across the whole sector. So just again highlighting this issue and why today we're going to be hearing from apprenticeships careers, because they hopefully can help build some of this capacity issue with us. The visa conditions and the extension of some of those conditions that were announced have certainly helped some of our operators and some of the visa holders, but not most. And obviously we still haven't been able to get visa holders into the country to fill that shortfall. So little parts towards an end goal, but not quite there yet. There has been some talk around some insurance rumblings, and look, I'm not going to go into depth today on this, but what I will ask all of you as an industry is to review the contracts that you may have with government authorities or others, and look at what they're requiring from you in regards to your insurance. If you find that they're requiring certain elements of insurance from you that either one, is not obvious in your own insurance cover, or you're having to take out extra insurance because of it, can you please let me know? Because we're having continual conversations in a space pushing back on some of the requirements on why these insurances are needed. So yeah, if you find that you're being requested certain insurance policies to deliver services to some contracts, let me know, because yeah, I'm starting to build a bit of a case. And then the last, well, sorry, not the last one, the second last one here is around some of the pressures that I know some of you are receiving from customers around your COVID practices and COVID processes. As COVID starts becoming less of a priority for a lot of people, I think there is this migration towards not having to follow process, or not as stringent on those considerations as we were perhaps some months ago. I have this advice for every business. Obviously, if you have processes, stick by your beliefs in those processes and what the outcomes are trying to achieve. Most cases, it's keeping your guests healthy and safe, and keeping your business away from any potential spread. So stand by that, and please, if you have any issues and want to have a discussion with me around that, with some ways that you can cope with some of these pressures from customers, give me a call and we can chat about it. But certainly as we come out of this, we might see a lot more of these pressures come from our potential customers. And the other observation for this week is that I call it the association disease. And by that, I mean that there's a lot of noise and passion and forthright objectives of trying to magnify change. And that's a great thing. And you can see that our industry is born from a lot of passion. But what I will say is that we need to consolidate our voice. We need to work together, because that will only give us a stronger direction in which to take. That is the idea behind the summit next week. The summit is certainly going to be a great opportunity to get collaborative voice, to come together, to have a bit of a path and a direction for the future. And I'm really fearful that people go off on their own agendas without coming onto the same path as some of the peak bodies. And by that, all it does is dilute resources, and it dilutes that message. So if you are in a group that you're advocating for change, join with us. Come into the fold with, whether it's us or another peak body that you work with. Make sure that you're collaborating, because again, that power of voice together is so much more than on your own. Right, so a couple of updates and reminders. So Climate Change Subcommittee is still open. That doesn't close till the end of next week. So if you're wanting to jump onto that subcommittee as one of our magnificent volunteers and you're passionate about climate change and you want to see the outdoor sector get ahead of this is a great opportunity for you. So make sure you nominate on that page, and we'll put you forward for consideration to the board. And the OEA awards are open. So the New South Wales and ACT awards are through a nomination process on our website. That closes on the 19th of June. The winners of New South Wales and ACT will then be put up to the national awards. And the national awards will be announced at the National Outdoor Education Conference in September in Leura. So make sure you recognise the ones that are doing amazing things in the industry and put them forward. There is 4 different categories, and it's a great opportunity to really shout out some of those amazing people. Last week, we heard from Regional New South Wales and the Stronger Country Communities Fund, which has been announced in its next round, and the focus on women in active recreation. So here's our chance, guys. If you have something where you want to see more women participate in your activities and active recreation, and you need a bit of infrastructure or something to make that happen, this is the grant for you. So make sure you search for that on their website. And I think they're due in mid-June. So get that application in. And I've doubled up on the subcommittee, so sorry about that one. But there is also another grant, which I wanted to highlight to our ACT guys. It's the Winter Event Fund. So it's up to $15,000 available, and that closes on the 6th of June. So you'll have to get in quick on that one. But it is looking at harnessing innovation to improve quality of life. No better else than the outdoor sector to do that. So if you're looking at an event to get your word out there or to get your customers involved, you can apply for up to $15,000 from the ACT government to do that. So if you want the details, make sure you message me and I'll send them through for you. I wanted to show you this slide. This slide I took out of my presentation that I did at the PLA conference last week, the Parks and Leisure Australia conference. And it's just a big shout out to active kids, because I think we don't talk about this enough. We have talked about it on a few Connect and Shares, but it's really important that our operators get involved in this program. The Active Kids Voucher program in 2019 had a magnificent take-up of close, I think it was 84% of all vouchers that were available were taken up. Obviously, 2020, we know that there was a lot of reasons behind the low take-up, but what scares me right now is we sit in mid-May, and in 2021, we've only had a 55% take-up. And when you look at the data, we're talking about probably 11% of all kids are getting their recommended amount of exercise every week. This comes at a time, and I think even it's been reported on the news recently, that our kids in Australia are one of the highest users of screens in the world. And the scary fact here is 12 to 13-year-olds are spending 30% of their waking time in front of computers or screens. So I know that we all advocate for those kids to be out in the outdoors and certainly increase their mental health capacity and resilience, but we need to extend that message far wider than just in our network. So if you're not in the program, please see if you can be in the program, or if not, advocate for it. We've got to get this changed and turned around for the betterment of our communities. Reminder about the severe weather guidance note, that's on the website now. So if you're doing activities and you haven't planned for severe weather, now's the time to grab that note and help you identify the areas that you need to address. And just a little bit more on the Education Forum. This was done by McCrindle, and they do it every year. They do a snapshot of where the education sector is up to and some of the challenges of today's kids. And this is the Z Gen. Our Z Gens are in school right now. And this slide for me, or there's two slides combined here, was really interesting for our sector. We are dealing with kids that what McCrindle calls the options generation, with unlimited pathways, but we do them no favors to set them up with endless opportunities, but no purpose. And I think it goes back to a big belief that I have, is that whole why. Why do we do what we do every day? And what's our purpose and meaning in life? And I think that's coming through more in the generations we're seeing come through our education system and through our programs in our outdoor education. So I thought this was a really good slide. It's going to take a little time to absorb this, but if you want to take a photo of that, I think it's certainly sending some really clear messages about how we interact with these kids in our programs. Okay, and then the Connect and Share update. So today we're talking about traineeships. Exceptionally excited about that one. Hopefully it's going to help us with some of our gap areas. Next week, we have a guest from Borneo who's going to talk about how the outdoors is working over there and what's happening in comparison to here in Australia. And then on the 4th of June, I'm going to give you a great update on where the summit got to, which the summit's being held next week. It's quite intensive. And hopefully I'll give you a really good snapshot of the discussions and the outcomes and the future of the outdoor industry, which we'll co-design together in next week's summit. Other events, we've got the local government destination conference next week, the outdoor retails exhibition the following week, and you can't forget the National Outdoor Education Conference. So the full program's up. Bookings are coming in. If you really want to get in for the early bird rate, I suggest you do so soon. The allocation is nearly exhausted in that. So jump online, book your tickets, and we'll see you in Lura in September. So let's jump into trainees and apprenticeships. Can they work for you? And we all know how desperate we are for staff, but I keep hearing, I haven't got time to do anything about it. I've got to lead this course or I've got to do this program. So hopefully with the wonderful expertise of Luke and Chris here today, we'll get some knowledge and understanding of what it can do for our industry and hopefully provide some of that gap. So who am I handing over to? Shall I hand over to Luke first?
I'll jump in, yeah. Thanks.
Fabulous. Thanks, Luke. Welcome, and thanks, Chris, as well.
Yeah, and welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here today. So we'll just go to the first slide if we can, Laurie, and I'll just talk a little bit about our business and how we've come about talking to you guys today. So we're actually a division of Business Australia. So the old New South Wales Business Chamber that most of you would probably be aware of, and I know that Laurie is certainly an active member of the Business Chamber and all the really good things that we do for small to medium sized businesses right across the country now, not just New South Wales with the change to Business Australia. So the division that I head up, I'm the general manager. Chris is one of the managers that we have down in Canberra. Is a group trainee organisation. So we're about hiring apprentices and trainees. So we have about 500 apprentices and trainees working for us in New South Wales, right across the state. We've got offices in Sydney, Newcastle, Wollongong, Canberra, Dubbo, Bathurst and Orange, and the Central Coast. I've just opened an office there. And we're about going into spending lots of time with young people, getting to really understand what they're ultimately looking for. So we'll have apprentices working for us, carpentry, electrical, plumbing type qualifications, and certainly trainees is really a large focus for us over the coming couple of years. We've been sort of really focusing on the trainee market. Now is the right time to look for trainees or apprentices. You might or might not have seen some recent announcements in the budget. We can pretty much, any trainee or apprentice that's hired, 50% of their wage is covered under a program called the BAC program. And it's the right time to do it. We've got until March of next year. They've just extended the program by another 6 months. So certainly when we sort of get into how our business model works and what we do, which Chris will sort of talk through because he's doing some work with a couple of members, at the one member at the moment. We can sort of talk through that model and how things work. We'll just go to the next slide if we can, Laurie. So what happens in our business is we're the employer of the apprentices. So we're actually hosting them out to yourselves. So we're responsible for everything to do with the recruitment of the apprentice, the hiring of them, their payroll. We cover them for workers' comp, payroll, super, cover their RTO fees and the like. And we ultimately have them working for us for the duration of their apprenticeship or traineeship. When we're discussing with Laurie your industry, I suppose one of the key requirements that we saw, where we could fit, is that because they're employed by us, we can move them around between different organisations, and that's where we really saw that benefit, that we might be able to have people in a season, that you might have people have a need for a 3 or 6 month period, can't keep them employed throughout that time, so we could move them into other host employers or your other colleagues in other areas across the board, but ultimately to continue the apprenticeship and traineeship, because that's the key for from our perspective, is getting them to the end of that qualification. But as I said, now is really the time to look at this market. There is lots of career expos and school visits that our team are doing at the moment. We call it the expo season at the moment. So we've got about 25 different career expos that we're out across the state talking to young people about opportunities, and we'd love the opportunity to talk about your industry and how we could put staff into and help with the shortage that you seem to be having in the industry. So I might just, next slide I think we've got for Chris. I might just hand over to Chris if I can.
No worries. Thank you very much. Thanks for having us here today. So part of the qualifications, as you may be aware of, is a Cert 4 in outdoor leadership. That comprises a total of 27 units, 12 are core competencies, and then there's 15 electives that you can choose from that cover about 50 different, qualifications, which can best suit into your business. So those first 12 are the core units that cover the basic day-to-day operations of what you'd require from a staff member, things such as safety and the likes. Then you can break out into what your business specialises in through those electives, whether it be abseiling, surfing, kayaking, all those things. So you can really tailor the training package to suit your individual business, which I think is a real benefit for you in that. There are a variety of training organisations. I had a meeting with Training Services New South Wales during the week regarding this, and they're very keen to work closely to ensure that they're upping the ante on the organisations delivering the qualification, number one, understanding the need that's there through the huge volume of potential people that will be undertaking the qualification, as well as making sure that they're getting a consistent quality throughout the industry, which I think is very important from a stakeholder point of view to be able to deliver that. Training Services New South Wales are very, very keen to partner and see what they can do to assist us in delivering a model that suits for your individual needs. And as Luke said, that benefit of being able to move someone on a seasonal basis very much links in with what Training Services can deliver, ensuring the quality and the uniformity of that training qualification. So that's what we have at the moment. And as Laurie and Luke alluded to, we're currently dealing with one of your colleagues, getting that all set up for them down in the South Coast region. I'm very excited to be working through the process and shortlisting some candidates for them at the moment. So looking forward to a very positive outcome and fulfilling a skills gap in that market for you. Thanks very much, Laurie. Luke.
Brilliant. Shall I go to the next slide?
I think that was our last slide, actually, Laurie.
Yep.
Awesome. No, that's great, guys. And what I might do, I might, unless anyone wants to take a photo of that, or they can ask me later, but I might stop sharing so you can see everyone, because certainly I've got some questions that have come through as I've been discussing this with a few of our members. So I thought this might be a great opportunity to throw that out to you both.
Right.
You mentioned, and I think, Luke, you mentioned the 50% cost. So, you know, the biggest thing that a lot of the members say, well, how much is this going to cost me? Is it going to be a lot more than what I would do it on my own? How does that work for an employer?
Yeah, so we if we're talking, I suppose, a typical trainee that we hire on our books, we will pay the trainee the usually the award wage, but occasionally we do pay a higher wage, and then we do have on costs, as we all would, employing people across the board. Superannuation, workers' comp, payroll tax, that sort of thing are included in there. We have a margin. Our margin is a flat $2 an hour, so it's it's relatively low when you consider that we're taking that risk on, and we're also off hiring the apprentice and the trainee. However, once you start looking at the BAC funding, so if the trainee is getting paid $14 an hour, $7 an hour goes back to you. So the cost is extremely low at the moment. The uptake in apprenticeships and traineeships is a bit crazy. My team are working really hard out there, and we're certainly part of that cost base has been part of the discussion that we've had over time with clients, and sort of deciding whether they do it or not, deciding whether they've got the time and energy to put into investing in some young people, or some more mature people, I suppose, also. But now is certainly the time to start looking at it.
Great. And the other question, which probably goes a little bit hand in hand with that, is the tyranny of distance. I know we've spoken about that seasonal approach, which is fabulous. I think, the solution that you've got for our issues of potentially not one employee needing someone full time, is a great model for what we do. But how does it work if we've got someone, say, for example, in the Snowies where David is, how do they get access to their training and that employment? Is there an issue with connecting them to that certification?
Chris, do you want to talk to that with the RTOs that you were talking
Sure. From an RTO point of view, most of them can deliver the majority of the training remotely and online, as I guess a positive outcome from COVID. There's also some RTOs that we're discussing with at the moment that can actually come onto site for you and deliver and do a check-in with the trainees that way. That's fine. As for transporting around the state, that becomes a secondary component, but there's also some funding that I was alluded to during the week through the Regional Development Fund, whereby they're incentivizing workers to be able to transfer. And in the early discussions with Regional Development Australia, we'd potentially be able to tap into that, because there's such a skills shortage in your industry, which would help offset the costs around attracting workers and that to the industry. So that's a positive there as well. So
that's great.
I'm just waiting on a definitive answer from Regional Development about that at the moment. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that certainly does. I've got a couple of other questions, but I want to give everyone else a chance to ask anything. Did anyone have anything specific that they want to ask Chris or Luke?
Yeah, this is an area, I guess it's come up over a number of years. When you're old, all these things recur. Of course, what we're talking about is an investment in the future of our business or the industry, because these trainees can't be used as leaders or assistant leaders, because they wouldn't meet the competencies of the National Adventure Activity Standards Good Practice Guides or other requirements of our insurers and others. So they're actually an additional person, a supernumerary, if you like, and where I guess we'd be looking at moving them into leader positions when they achieve their competency and qualification. Because if we employed them as leaders or assistant leaders, we would actually have to assess them as competent and qualified, or equivalent to qualified. So why are they doing a traineeship?
That's a detailed one, Dave. I'm not
That's
too
completely, you know, I'll jump in there. Completely agree, and you know, I think you know, there's lots of industries that are having similar type challenges, and you know, for us, you know, our part of our business is going out there and you know, selling, you know, why your industry should be investing in young people to you know to get them a start, because I completely agree. You know, ultimately, it is an investment. You know, they're you know costing you money at the you know the starting point for sure, but you know, ultimately, once they are qualified, that's when you know the real payback does happen, you know, for sure. But that, as I said, you know, at the moment that cost is half what it was before, you know, before the budget. So it's certainly something that, you know, most businesses are, you know, are jumping at right now.
Mm. One of the other big questions I keep being asked is people are worried about you employing someone that's going into their business that they want quality control on. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we let the host employer, so you guys decide who you're taking. So you know, we would come in, and so someone like Chris would come in as he's doing down the south coast with one of the members, and he's going there to you know to do a spec of to exactly what you're looking for, to work to a job description and to competencies that you're actually looking for. He'll then go off and source candidates for you, give you a short list, depending on how many you want, 3 or 5, and then ultimately for yourselves to decide who you would actually want to employ out of that group. Clearly, if you know they don't work out, they can be handed back to us with a week's notice, and you know you don't have the other obligations that might be occurring there with unfair dismissal and the like. You know, we sort of take on those sort of areas also with fair work and the like. So certainly, you know, the control is in your hands as to who you take. You know, there's no requirement you need to take anyone by signing some paperwork for us to go off and recruit. It's, you know, can we find the right person for you? And that's, you know, the challenge of, you know, what Chris and the rest of the team do on a daily basis.
Yeah, brilliant.
Mel, and sorry, if I can just add to that, as part of that screening process, the prerequisites in discussing the organisation down the south coast is things like a first aid certificate, working with children check. They've got all that before I present them to you. So we'll look after all that to make sure that it's a simpler process and save you time, so you and your members can be out in the field where you want to be.
Yeah, awesome, Chris. I just noticed Rob's question there. Maybe, Chris, that goes with what you were saying about that extra funding, or I'm not too sure which funding Rob's. Rob, do you mean both funding or just the traineeship funding?
Yeah, the traineeship. So if it's a 50% discount thing, how long is it going to be only cut off in a year, 18 months, 2 years, 5 years?
Yeah, so you've got at this stage, and they've just re-announced it again, so that they could extend it further. But at this stage, it's through till March the 31st, and you get 12 months worth of wage subsidy, that 50% wage subsidy over a 12-month period. They announced this about 6 months ago, and it was due to cut off in September. So they have extended it by another 6 months. So you know, we're not sure whether they will extend it again. You know, clearly when you hear Scott Morrison talk, and you know certainly Frydenberg, you hear lots about apprenticeships and traineeships, and you know the skill shortages of getting people from overseas and the like. So it's a good media story for them to get out there to sell it. So you know, who's to say it might go longer than that? But at this stage, March 31, with a full 12 months worth of the 50% of the wages covered.
So that means that you've got to sign up before March 31?
That's right.
Yeah, great. We're 12 months. Okay. And that's to your point, Luke, the sentiments I certainly heard from Josh Frydenberg this week was very positive in this program. And I wish I had a crystal ball, but certainly they understand the need for traineeships in getting youth into careers, because I think they've recognised of all the different courses that exist in universities today without the jobs on the other side. So certainly traineeships has been a big topic in that space. Take your point, Dave. I think it has worked well in other industries. We're a little bit slow coming to the table. So really excited that we can start moving in this direction and giving another option for our employers. Any other questions you want to ask Chris or Luke at this point?
Are there, you're a national organisation, so, and I'm a Mexican, so I'm down the other side of the border. So I assume there's similar systems in all the various other states and territories as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I've talked, pretty general to New South Wales, but yes, we've got offices, right across the country. So, down in Victoria, we've got 2 different offices that, we could service the needs. And those, what I was talking about there is federal funding. So certainly, the 50% wage subsidy is right across the country.
Absolutely. Fabulous, guys. Are there any tie-up with government RTOs like TAFE? Was a question from Rob. Is there, I'll let you talk to who you use for the education component.
So thanks, Rob. We tap into a variety of RTOs. We'll deal with whoever the preferred RTO is in the region that you may or may not have experience with. We're not a Line 21 RTO, that's for sure. I know, talking with my client down the South Coast, they have a preferred RTO and started discussions on how they can best deliver the traineeship with that, and that's definitely not TAFE. So we're very much open to working in with who you prefer. Some, as I alluded to in my earlier thing, Training Services New South Wales are very aware that there's a huge disparity between the level of services offered in this field under Certificate 4 in outdoor leadership, and they're working hard in the background to try and get that level of consistency across all RTOs. So there's no problem at all. If you have a preferred RTO up there on the mid-coast, absolutely happy to work in with them and see what we can do with them.
Rob, did you want to clarify anything on that, or does that answer your query?
No, that's fine. I'll have to. RTOs, well, half the component is online anyway, but we're just having trouble trying to find someone to do the practical, the finishing, and normally they'd have to go to Blue Mountains or something, or Newcastle. But if we can have someone arranged to do it here, Taree, Foster Tuncurry or something, which would work in with other learning institutions, then that would be good. But yeah, I'll talk to them and I'll look into the detail and hopefully we can jack something up. Because
one of the RTOs,
the business chamber here is also going in that direction, trying to train up baristas and cleaners and, for the tourism trade. So it's a topical thing around here.
One of the RTOs that does deliver the Cert 4 in leadership, outdoor leadership, is currently partnered up in delivering winter skills training down in the Snowy region, and they definitely have the facilities to be able to travel across the state to be able to do that final sign off and things like that. So they're definitely one of the ones that we're currently talking with.
Yeah, brilliant.
For you guys.
And another one that's online, I know Stuart's sitting in the background there, but Scouts Australia actually have their own RTO in this space, so that's another opportunity. David, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I mean, in my situation, I'd probably only be looking for Certificate 3 people. The majority of the Certificate 4 isn't really relevant to outdoor leaders, in my opinion, but then I'm a controversial person. So I assume it would work with, stop laughing. I assume that it would work with a Certificate 3 as well as Certificate 4, which is a much shorter course. Yeah.
It does, David. Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, David, whereabouts are you located?
I'm located in the northeast of Victoria, Mount Buffalo, Bright.
Mount Buffalo? Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
No worries.
Dave's activities also come across into our border, which is why he's a member in New South Wales.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Stuart, did you want to say anything about the RTO, or you're happy with what I've said today?
With what you said so far is all good. We do offer, from RTO and Scouts, offer the outdoor leadership in up to Cert 4 and diploma level in Scouting, so as well as other units as well. And there's a lot of people that go through the Scout RTO to get the qualifications.
Brilliant, thank you. Mel, and I know you sort of got most of your training sorted at the moment, but is there anything that's relevant to your needs right now?
Not really, Laurie. I mean, we're still in the process of growing the school camp side of our business, so it's kind of hard for us at the moment because we don't have consistent work for staff. So I mean, that is a challenge in itself for us because we'd like to have more work for our staff, but currently we don't. And we do kind of feel that schools coming over the border is still an issue for us, that they're just not, we don't have many Queensland schools booked in.
Yeah, if you're on another border, you might not have such an issue, but unfortunately, yes, you're on the wrong end of the state. Chris and Luke, Mel's up in the Northern Rivers area, so close to the Queensland border. And yeah, just for your knowledge, she's struggled a lot with a lot of the Queensland schools that used to come to her camp, now not coming for obvious reasons. But yeah, it's a really good point, Mel. And I think to a question for Luke and Chris, I know you said that you've got that flexibility working across employers. In Mel's circumstance, where she might only have work maybe one day a week or something like that, is that workable? Or yeah, how does that work for a trainee?
Yeah, under the traineeship model, they can be either employed 38 hours a week minimum or 15 hours. So 15 is the minimum if they're doing a part-time qualification. Now that's 15 hours averaged over a 4-week period over a month. So that probably does mean that some weeks it might be one day and others it might be 3. But certainly that is a minimum requirement to put someone into a traineeship.
Okay, all right, that's a little less than I was expecting. So yeah, okay.
Apprenticeships are 21, so 21 hours a week minimum, but traineeships are only 15.
Okay, good to know. Food for thought, Emma. So
yeah. Thank you.
No worries. Any other final questions or points that you'd like to make with Chris or Luke?
Just one more question. I've been having discussions with a guy named Graham Pilling up in Queensland, who's an RTO, another ex-military person like myself, and we're talking about working together. So I assume state borders and all that sort of stuff don't really matter anyway. Things can be done at a distance. Yeah.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely. We've got RTOs that are delivering qualifications to us in where I'm in Sydney, that based over in Adelaide. So it's no problem at all, as long as they've got the authority from the state authority to be able to deliver the qualification in the state. It's no issue.
So another question I have: if someone already has a Cert 3, could they still go through you guys or a Cert 4 to get the apprenticeship? So if they've already come in with the qualifications, and would you then take them under your wing to give them apprenticeships?
Yeah, absolutely. We can sign people that are in Cert 3s, and there's lots of employers that are out there at the moment that have either got a Cert 2 or a Cert 3 that we're putting through Cert 4s that do also attract that subsidy. So great question, Stuart. I should have mentioned that earlier. But there's lots of employers out there that are currently doing that.
Great stuff. Yeah, that's a really good point. Awesome. Anything else from anyone? Or what I might do is for the recording sense is also put up the last screen, because I think this conversation has been awesome, and I'm hoping that a lot more people take the time to view this recording and see this as an opportunity to help what is 76% of the camps that are out there are struggling with capacity. So we know the demand's there. We know now the flexibility is there. We know this is an option. So guys, let's start acting. Let's get our staff into the business and let's get the capacity back up there so we can get more kids into camp and more resilient for their life skills ahead of them. Any other final points, questions, ideas, challenges? No? All said, all done? Okay, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for another Connect and Share on a Friday. And we wish you all the very best for the weekend ahead and the week that follows. And we'll see you next Friday on our Connect and Share. If you want to join us for happy hour, 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mel. Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Chris. Awesome stuff. Thanks, Dave, Stuart, Rob.